Good afternoon, and thank you for coming to our second public lecture. My name is Tilly, and this is Amon, my lecture partner. We began the lecture series with a discussion with two digital makers who spoke about their practice, the metaverse, and the interplay between digital and physical art. Today, we are joined by Pascal Brun, the co-founder of Papers, a mobile-first software which promotes shifting technologies like blockchain. Pascal will be delving into how to make an NFT in a sustainable, ethical, and safe way. We encourage you to ask questions in the live chat feature on YouTube. I'm now going to hand over to Amon, who's just going to give you a brief description of the lecture series.
Thanks, Tilly. So Central St. Martin's has an unparalleled reputation for pushing boundaries and innovation. And as we move into a new frontier in the metaverse, it'll be the students and faculties at this school that are going to form the vanguard. So we're very, very happy to have Pascal here today to talk about how to mint a sustainable NFT. So NFTs have been exploding in relevance in terms of fashion and art as they gain more mainstream legitimacy. Then there's an increase in their value. There's going to be more an opportunity for young creatives to kind of monopolize on their digital practice. Yet along with this digital gold rush, there's been a very serious concerns about the environmental impacts of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and NFT platforms based on Ethereum. From Fortnite and Balenciaga to Gucci's digital shoes, NFTs breakthrough into fashion has not seen any signs of slowing down. Yet there's been a surge of interest on a series of new blockchains with a more sustainable bent, promising a lower environmental impact and cheaper production. Enter Tezos, a sustainable blockchain that has been gaining momentum recently, signing up big partners like Art Basel and McLaren. And other sustainable NFT companies have created platforms like NBA Top Shot, which in its first year did $1 billion US in sales. I'll now like to hand off to Pascal to start off our lecture. Thanks so much, Pascal.
Thank you very much for the intro. Cool. Let me get started here by sharing my screen. So this should be coming up now. Can you see it? Good. Okay, cool. So yeah, thanks for the intro again. I want to give you some insights, or essentially also an introduction into how to make a sustainable NFT, mainly on Tezos. We will be looking at some things around NFTs, blockchain, Tezos, also why is it sustainable, and then we will also dive a bit deeper into a more hands-on session, essentially creating your own NFT and how you can do that on Tezos. So yeah, my name, as we've already heard, is Pascal Brun. I'm a co-founder at Papers. I have essentially a technical background, so started in system engineering, then moved more towards product development, where I now am focusing essentially on user experience and user interfaces. Essentially, that is the more design part of the whole project development at Papers. Talking about Papers, a quick background on Papers is essentially, so we're mainly a Swiss development company that have a focus on mobile security and blockchain. The company is more than 10 years old, and when we started out, we focused on Android development and then moved towards the mobile security sector, essentially providing the security components for like banking solutions and other Fortune 500 companies on Android and iOS. During mid-2016, as a company, we became more aware of the blockchain space. Before that, individually, some of the co-founders were quite active in that area, but we were able to help projects to develop fundraising platforms during that time. And that's where we essentially saw that this is the blockchain technology has quite a lot of interesting aspects, and they are quite promising. But there are also some security implications that go along with it. We started then essentially combining the mobile security knowledge that we had with blockchain and building a first user-faced wallet that focuses more on usability and as well as security. Then this also brought us essentially to Tezos during or at late 2018. After the mainnet launch of Tezos, we started to be more involved with the project, mainly first with the wallets that we have worked on, and then providing more and more essentially adoption projects built on Tezos. So this would be smart contract development and these decentralized applications, essentially. Also, essentially why I'm speaking here, we have been involved with NFTs on Tezos earlier this year. When we started, it was more of a side project, tccolors.io, which the idea was essentially to bring all the building blocks on Tezos together. So this would be smart contracts, how to connect a wallet and so forth, and build a small platform called tccolors, which was kind of using, I think it was 1,690 colors, color artworks as NFTs. So these were minted and then auctions were created for them. And the reception that we received for that was overwhelming. A lot of people started participating in these auctions where we initially thought not much interest would fall on tccolors. This exploded quite a lot and kind of kickstarted our curiosity in the NFT space as papers. From then on, we started to become more active as well in consulting capacity in terms of smart contract development. So we have worked together with various partners in the Tezos ecosystem. One of them is providing or enabling Grammy artists essentially to digitalize or create NFTs out of their music. Maybe let's take a quick look first at blockchain. So just that we get a basic understanding of what we are talking about and why NFTs are quite revolutionary, at least in my point of view. So the basics, essentially, just to give you some insights. This is in no way complete. There is a lot of more information concerning blockchains, and it can get quite technical and quite complicated. But on like a simple overview, what are the advantages essentially of a blockchain? On one hand, we have security. There is a cryptography involved where you have a public and a private key. Essentially, that is then your account. There's also security in terms of validation of this blockchain that is being brought by multiple parties. There is immutability. So with a blockchain, you essentially have a ledger that keeps track of transactions. So if we have the example here, Alice transfers this NFT to Bob, that is then being included in one block. Alice cannot transfer the same NFT to Charlie afterwards, after this initial transaction has been confirmed. So you have this kind of security that one account essentially can own something. Is it like an asset like Tez, the native token on Tezos, or is it like an NFT or any other asset? So you have these transactions that are then included in these blocks, and you have a chain that is just continuing, and you cannot change anything like 3 or 4 blocks before. And then also one part of the blockchain essentially is there's the decentralization aspect. So you don't have a single party that is essentially also the single point of failure. You don't have one cloud provider essentially where this blockchain is being run, but you have multiple validators that are participating in this, in the validation of this chain. And they are spread across the globe. They're running their own infrastructure and are essentially participating in the validation of this chain, also earning some fees for creating essentially or including these transactions in these blocks. So talking about Tezos, Tezos has a few or brings advantages in terms of other blockchain. We have spoken about that security is very important. So security in validating the network, as well as how the underlying protocol is being written. One main part of Tezos is as well that it's being built to evolve. So essentially that if you, for example, say, my NFTs to create them, it's quite expensive now. So then the community can propose an upgrade to Tezos, which would reduce that fee. And the whole process is like guided by that community, and it's also seamless. So the upgrades would not require you as a user to install any update, essentially. What we will take a closer look as well is like the energy efficient algorithm. So the difference on that we will look at a bit later. A main or an important part, especially for NFTs, is essentially the smart contracts. So smart contracts are essentially, you have to figure or imagine them as like programs that are being run within this blockchain. And they essentially allow to create digital assets like NFTs or other tokens on that blockchain, and allow them also that you can transfer them, you can create auctions, you can put them up for offer and everything like that. So NFT, maybe the abbreviation we have heard quite a lot, mostly recently. What is an NFT essentially, and what does it stand for? So there are two main asset types on a blockchain. So one would be the fungible token, where I can create, I don't know, 1 million Pascal coins. And these are all the same, these Pascal coins, so they are interchangeable, essentially. And on the other hand, an NFT, which is the non-fungible asset, is essentially a representation of something else. So there is like one representation. If I send that to someone, then I'm not owning the same representation again until that person transfers that back to me. And so how does an NFT work? How does it look like? We know that there is like a media asset, there might be a picture, a photo, an illustration, an MP3 or a video. So this is the main part of it. That's what we essentially see on these platforms, right? But there is another part to it, so which is the metadata associated to it. So we want to understand what by whom this, like, who is the artist behind this NFT. Is there like a story behind it? Is there a description? Are there certain kind of like attributes or royalties included into that? And that is what we see here on the right, which is the metadata, essentially the representation of that NFT that is then also included into the smart contract itself. So these two combined are then essentially the NFT that is being shown somewhere on a platform, on a marketplace within like a block explorer that allows you to explore the protocol, or within a wallet essentially where you can transfer them. So one important thing is most NFTs are not directly stored on the blockchain itself, so on the protocol. This is mainly due to the storage costs are quite high within a blockchain. So you have certain transaction fees and certain costs associated with creating an NFT, for example, and this storage that is being taken up, it can become quite expensive, essentially, to execute this within the smart contracts. What normally is being done is there is being this very ominously named interplanetary file system, short IPFS, which has some similarities with a blockchain, as it is providing distributed storage. So you have, again, all across the globe, you have people essentially providing storage to this system where then your NFT is stored. The main advantage of this is if you would do that, for example, if you would upload the NFT that you want to create to, say, Google Drive, there is always Google that, or even you, can say, okay, now I will delete this. And then if I'm pointing to that asset, it will not be available anymore. And that's not what we want. We want to have the NFT essentially available for as long as it can be. And that's why we are using this IPFS service. So on IPFS, usually the image itself is stored, and as well as the metadata that we can see here, this file, which has the description of the NFT, as we saw before. We can also see here, these are IPFS links linking to the asset itself. So IPFS, with the combination of the blockchain, allows us essentially to give away all the control over that NFT and have it distributed across the globe over these two networks. So one, the Tezos protocol, where the smart contract is, and the other where essentially the assets lie. So in terms of NFTs themselves, so there are like a lot of different categories that NFTs essentially exist. I mean, from art to music that we've heard before, to gaming. They have applications like being representations of domain names. Also lately, what has been getting quite a lot of attention are these profile picture projects, essentially randomly generated collections. In this case here, we see on the right, it's a collection called Project Neon on Tezos, where you have these avatars that are being randomly generated out of layers. So I think for Project Neon, there were around 4,000, or around, actually, I don't know how many there were again. I think around 4,000 NFTs were created randomly and with these layers. So you would have the different hands, different facial structure, and everything like that. And then they are being essentially auctioned off. If you get one of these unminted ones, so you don't really know what's in there, and then you essentially wait until they are revealed, and you find out, depending on the attributes, how rare the whole NFT is. So this would be one example that has been getting quite a lot of attention. There are also other utilities. There are like virtual worlds. There are hand-drawn art. There are illustrations. So you are quite open what you can do essentially with creating an NFT. The idea that is underlying is essentially you just represent a specific asset that is stored somewhere. So maybe as this talk is called sustainable NFT, why sustainability in the NFT space? We have, or there were a lot of negative comments essentially associating NFTs with a lot of energy use, so that you would need a lot of energy to essentially create an NFT. And this is partially true, but it doesn't apply to all protocols. So there is the distinction between this underlying algorithm that, for example, the Tezos protocol uses, which is called proof of stake, which is inherently different than to the algorithm that Bitcoin or Ethereum uses. The main difference there is that the miners in the proof of work aspects, which are creating the blocks, are required to solve a computationally intensive puzzle to essentially being able to create that block. Of course, this requires a lot of hardware, so there's shortage in the hardware as there is high demand, but it also requires a lot of energy to essentially get to the solution of that puzzle. What Tezos has is a proof of stake, which is essentially that the validator, so the ones that are producing this block, they put up a certain amount of Tez, so the Tezos native asset, up for stake, which means that if they are trying to cheat or including something malicious within a block, what happens is that everyone else will see that, and part of their stake, so part of their test that they have been put up as a deposit essentially, is being taken away. So there is a lot of incentive in only including valid transaction into these blocks. There are some comparison here that we can see that Ethereum, which is proof of work, uses a lot of carbon dioxide for minting or creating 3 NFTs. And this is fractions lower on Tezos. Also on the right, we see a graph in terms of energy consumption, where Bitcoin is consuming lots and lots of energies. There are a lot of comparisons around. It's like this 7th or 6th most globally ranked energy consumption. Also Ethereum, even though it's a fraction of Bitcoin, essentially still consumes a lot of energy. And then we have Tezos at the bottom, which is just like a small fraction of it. So this is one part why people essentially say Tezos has a sustainable approach and is not requiring tons of energy just to create one asset or one NFT. There are like comparisons around that. If you do tweet, it's essentially this, you use the same amount of energy as if you would create an NFT on Tezos. So talking about NFT marketplaces, we in the Tezos ecosystem essentially There are a few marketplaces around. One of the most known is probably the one with the quite interesting name called Hikenunk, or Hen in short, which is one of the first NFT marketplace project that has been started on Tezos and has also seen global attention from like renowned artists, as the project is completely strapped up with a grassroots process. So you have a lot of community members in there that are kind of pushing the project forward. There's also Calamint or object.com, which we will take a closer look at later. So these all essentially allow you to create your own NFT and also have more abilities like creating a listing for your NFT or auctions. So have the complete like marketplace experience essentially. Maybe talking also about sustainability, not from like an energy consumption wise, but maybe also sustainability on your funds or on your wallet. There are, this is a comparison, I think it's dated from August. So on the left, we see a marketplace on Ethereum with this minting or NFT creation fees in USD. And on the right, we see Hikenunk, which has also the dollar values for these, for a mint, for example, which you can see is quite a lot lower. So the entry barrier, especially also for artists that maybe don't have a lot of money and they just want to try out, bring their art to broader masses. They have a lot of advantage on platforms like Hikenunk on Tezos. So then maybe this was a bit of background. I mean, NFT in general, also blockchain is a quite substantial topic, but I hope I could give you some insights into the whole, like what is behind it and how does it essentially work on a like protocol level, and how does it look on a front end or on a user perspective. That's what we are going to do now. So we will take now a look at object.com, which is one of the platforms that that I've mentioned previously, and we will go through the whole process of minting or creating your own NFT. Let me get this set up. So one part that you need to participate in like an NFT marketplace is it in terms of, I don't know, creating a bid for a specific NFT that you like, or creating your own NFTs, you need a wallet. And a wallet is essentially your access to the blockchain, to the Tezos blockchain in this case. There are a few wallets out there, and they all have their different capabilities or focuses. So what we are looking here at is Kukai. Kukai is a wallet that is really user-friendly, as it allows you to use your Google account or your Facebook, Twitter, or Reddit account to create essentially a wallet. So in the background, there is all this private public key cryptography going on, which essentially allows you to verify that you own access to a certain account. What we are going to do here, or what we have to do, is say we are continuing with Google. I'm using a Google account here, and I just say I want to sign in with that account. Now the Kukai essentially creates a wallet for me. So this is a way that I have always access to that wallet, which is represented as like a TC address. And if I log out, or if I want to go on another device, I can always use now my Google account to access this wallet. So what we can see here, we have a Tezos balance, which we require to pay for transaction costs. So if I want to create a transaction, is it creating an NFT or transferring it on a blockchain, you usually need to pay a certain transaction cost, like the comparison that we have seen before. Then on the other side, we have object.com. So this is essentially the marketplace. And what we are doing now is we want to connect our Kukai wallet that we have seen with this marketplace. And for that, we can go here on the top right and click sync. Usually you have on like these decentralized applications in the Tezos ecosystem, you have a button that says connect wallet, or also the terminology sync is being used. What we can see here, there are a few wallets in the Tezos ecosystem that are essentially compatible with object.com. They all have their advantages. What we are using here now is Kukai. So I can select that. And Kukai is being opened in a new tab, and I get a permission request. So essentially, I am allowing my wallet to connect to object. So we approve that here. And then we get prompted with another screen here, which essentially says, do you want to log into object? We don't need to have an additional login on object.com. So for example, we don't need to register with an email address, create a password, verify that, and go all through that. Our Tezos wallet is essentially are the credentials to log into object.com. So I say here, click on sign. I need to confirm that in this case with my Google account. And if we go back here to object, we see that we are logged in. So this is the profile that I have here, and all the NFTs that I have created. There are collections. I currently own only one that I have created as a test, and there's not much of a history in this account. So what we are going to do now is one, we can say, okay, we want to create a new collection. I want to have like multiple artworks in that collection. I don't know, I want to have my drawings digitized, and then there are like 10 of them, and I want to create a new collection for that. For that, we can go here to object.com and say, okay, we want to create a new collection. It's we give it a name. This is just a random collection that we're creating. We're attaching an image to it that I'm also adding here. And now if I click on create, what we can see here is uploading data to IPFS. So in the background, object.com now did the step for us that it uploaded this asset essentially and the metadata to IPFS, this interplanetary file system that you have seen before, and now asks me to confirm that the transaction. For that, we're going back to our Kukai wallet. And now we see here that we can confirm this operation essentially. For collections, what is going to happen is that Object has created now or prepared essentially a smart contract with these details that I have entered. So this means that a collection on object is represented by a smart contract. So if I click here on confirm, I need to sign this again with my Google account, essentially. And now I need to wait until that operation has been included into the blockchain. This can vary a bit in terms of how long it takes. So block time is 30 seconds on Tezos. So this means every 30 seconds, a new block is being created where all these operations are included. This has now already happened. My transaction has been included. And now we see that object is now indexing the collection metadata. This is a step that can take a bit, as object is now essentially caching or saving for simpler loading the collection that I've just created to their whole environment. So this is not directly related to the chain itself. I could go now on a block explorer where I can see all the details that have happened on the contract itself. This is more in terms of user experience, so that I don't have to wait a long time the next time I want to load this until it essentially shows up. So if I go to my collections now, we can see the one that I also had previously. And what I can say here again is on the top right, again, we want to create a new token. So now we have created the collection, and now within that collection, we want to add a new NFT. And we can do that by using an image here again. And then we have to fill out the metadata. So what you've seen before in the presentation here, so this list essentially that we have here is what we are creating now by filling out the form. So we give it a title. We call it, the name is Security Prevails, as we have a nice little illustration here. The description, we take the same. We can now assign it to a collection. We can even set a license if it's public domain or if it has some other restrictions to it. What we then can do as well is we can create the editions. So we can say this is an edition 1 out of 1. So there's only one of this in existence. We could also say it's an edition of 10. So we would have the NFT number 1 out of 10, NFT number 2 out of 10, and so forth. But it's still unique. So it's still the specific asset. If I transfer number 2 to someone, they will have the number 2 of that edition. So we are going to say 1 here, as we want to have only 1 edition. And then additionally, we can define royalties. So this is quite interesting, as the royalties goes back to the artist or the creator of the NFTs. So if we, for example, define here 10%, then this means every time the NFT is being transferred to someone else, is it either through an auction or an offering, so against an amount, I will get 10% of that if I set a 10% royalty rate here. So this is really interesting, so that you still get some royalties even after you have initially sold the token, essentially. So if I click mint again here, we can see the uploading data to IPFS. We can see the transaction is being created, and we need to confirm the transaction in our Kukai wallet. So I can click here, confirm again. I can then sign that operation, and then it's being added to the chain, or essentially waiting for confirmation of the chain itself. maybe quickly terms on or some insights into the wallets. So Kukai, we have seen that now is quite easy to use. There are some limitations to it, as you're connecting it to your Google account, which means essentially if you lose access to your Google account, then you also lose access to your wallets. There are other wallets out there. The one that we have or are working on, which is called AirGap. It's a mobile wallet, and you have a lot of more control over the private key, or usually it's like 24 words essentially that you do a backup. So there, if you want to play around with it, just to mint a token, then I mean, go for it. But after you are using your wallet for larger amounts, first think about what the best possibilities might be for you, as you don't want to lose necessarily access to these wallets. And there is no party involved that can give you back your access. So then let's take a look at here. So we're also waiting for the metadata to be indexed on this one. But we have here the other one that we have created before. This is essentially the representation of the NFT on the object platform. What we can do here, we can see under actions. So I can now say, okay, cool, I've created that NFT, but I want to create a listing for it. So I can say this NFT should be valued at 20 TES, and then I can create that listing. So if I do this here, I say 1 and 20. If I click on list, I need to confirm the operation again in my Kukai wallet, and then everyone else can see that that NFT is for sale for 20 TES. I can also create auctions. There are a few ways to do that. So we have Dutch auctions or English auctions. So we have a price drop essentially where you can say, okay, I want to start at 100 TES, and then I want the price to decrease until someone essentially picks it up. And if we look at the marketplace quickly, what we can see, there are a lot of NFTs essentially listed here. We have like this one here, which was also this randomly generated projects with these skeletons. I can essentially, this is now an auction, a highest bid auction. I can just say, cool, I want to buy this, but unfortunately my account does not have 15 TES, so this will not work. But I can say, okay, I want to go somewhere else. Maybe I can go here. This is like, has a minimum bid of 1 TES. So I can say 1 TES, can say place bid. Now I'm heading over to my Kukai wallet. We can see here, this is 1 TES for this NFT, and I can then confirm it. And after this is being included into the chain, I will then own the NFT. So I would implore you to take a look at like the different platforms, object, just browse around, see what you can essentially do with it, and get more familiar with like the NFTs that are on Tezos. Good. So this quite long monologue, I hope it was not that hard to follow, brings me essentially to the question part. And I think there were some questions already prepared.
Hi, Pascal, that was amazing. Thanks so much. So yeah, we have a bunch of questions in chat, so I think we'll start off there. So I'll start with one of them, which I find really cool. How ethical do you think NFTs are in terms of like monetary kind of transactional value? So obviously there's incredibly inflated prices. How do you feel about like the kind of rapid inflation in the market, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, in the end, this is all goes also down to like a subjective matter, right? So people are willing to buy certain NFTs for these outrageous prices. I mean, I'm not sure how sustainable that is in the long run. Personally, what I see, what is really interesting are applications in terms of like the collectible space. So you have, you can imagine a trading card game essentially, or like baseball cards or football cards, soccer, sorry, on the blockchain essentially, where you have like a scarcity associated with it. So a certain rarity, you can trade them, which has been done like analog on paper quite for a long time. But I can also see that there is like more kind of revolution in terms of like artists exposure, so that you can have a more unknown artist create artworks and then putting them up on such a platform. There might be at the beginning valued quite conservatively, but then in the end provide also exposure to the artist itself.
Cool, thank you. That was really interesting. I've got another question from our audience, which is, you were mentioning before the kind of different categories of NFTs, and they were wondering if you could kind of go into a bit more detail about what these categories are and how one navigate, as a creator, one navigates different categories within the NFT world.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there is essentially, I mean, the categories are essentially limitless, like we have seen here, right? We have mentioned the collectibles, which are usually are projects that have some kind of scarcity around it. The generative art aspect is also quite interesting, but you also have with one of the Grammy award-winning artists essentially putting up their songs or creating NFTs out of their songs. There are in the gaming world, for example, you could have certain items that your in-game character can wear. For example, there is from Red Bull Racing, you can get now like helmets as NFTs, or like a race car, for example. And I think the vision there in the long run is that you can take your NFT essentially and bring it within like a game. So the whole metaverse aspect there. So you can use it on different platforms. So that is quite exciting to me personally as well. And then I mean also the whole art aspect, if it's like photography, if it's like paintings, if it's 3D artists, if it's AR or anything like that. I think these are more like a non-exhaustive list of like categories. So there are a lot of experimentation going around the NFT space. And I think this should be more like guiding you to be in somewhat of a category, but this should in no way limit anyone uploading their art essentially as an NFT.
Okay, I actually have a question of my own now. What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen as an NFT?
I mean, there are like nude pictures, obviously, that people put up as NFTs. So I don't know how huge the market is for some of them. So I think that is one of the weirder things that I've come across.
I think the best one that I ever saw was a CV as an NFT. I was just like, okay.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
we have
there
one
are tweets and everything like that are like uploaded as an NFT, right?
Yeah. So yeah, we have one in the audience that's really great. So they're kind of asking, is it possible to code something into the metadata of an NFT before it's uploaded? So could you use the NFT as sort of digital key to create a change in another system?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And the short answer is yes, you can do that. The bit longer answer is that platforms like Object or Hikenung, they quite focus on like their use case of I have an essentially a media asset and I want to create an NFT out of that. So the metadata that of that NFT is essentially name, description, the royalties, the offer, and maybe some attributes, right? But if you want to do that, you can create like a custom smart contract and add further like features to it. There were experiments being done that you essentially would have access keys to maybe a building or something like that represented as NFTs. So I could also send that NFT to someone else, and then they can gain access to that building. So I mean, there is a vast potential how essentially what you can do then with the NFT itself.
Student question.
So I have another question. We have quite a few students tuning in, and I was just wondering, like, what advice you'd give any makers, either who have digital experience or don't have digital experience, but want to get into the NFT game. What advice would you give them?
I think I would say just play around with it, get familiar with like the more like user experience or technology aspect of it. So I mean, go on object.com, for example, set up your Tezos wallet, and then just create your first NFT. There are also great communities around these projects. So Object has a huge Discord server, so there is a lot of people that you can approach and ask your questions. There is also the Hikenung Discord, for example, and people there are in these communities. They are really helpful, and they want to onboard like new artists and that are interested in exploring this like digital world essentially. So you have a lot of resources at your hands, mainly in these Discord communities, but also like on Twitter and everywhere else. There are a lot of helpful people that just can answer all your questions. So just like dip your toe in the water and just play around with it, try it out, and then see if it's something for you.
Great. Yeah, no, I definitely think, as these communities kind of grow, especially as students join them more and more, we can kind of create, these communities already exist. And I think adding, a student community to those kinds of things is a great springboard for a lot of innovation. So that's really fantastic. One of the first questions that we had got quite early on was, unfortunately, somebody had to leave and they had wanted some of your contact information, but I can see it in the left-hand corner now. So just if anybody's interested, that's how you can contact Pascal. Yes. So yeah, I think that's a great place to end. Thank you so much, Pascal, for coming today. I would just like to note that this lecture is being recorded, so it will be on the CSM YouTube permanent site within a few days. We really look forward to seeing you at our next event, which is a collaboration with MA and Innovation Management. And it's about how blockchain is revolutionizing the art market. So we hope you all tune in for that. Pascal, would you like to add anything or speak to our CSM students at all?
Yes, so maybe in closing what we've talked about before, so how to get started. What we will do here is essentially just get started with Tezos, create a wallet. But obviously you need some tests to pay for the minting or transaction fees. So pick one of the wallets, then you get your TC address and forward them to us essentially, and we will give you a small amount so that you can get started.
That's really, really fantastic and really amazing that you're providing such an amazing resource for our students. There are definitely several interested parties, so we're definitely going to be sending some people your way quite soon.
Cool, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks as well.
Bye.
Hope you get started soon with NFTs on Tezos.